Bill Vorndick was one of the great unsung heroes of American music. He never obtained the name recognition of some of the more high-profile American engineers and producers from New York and Los Angeles. But he was famous and treasured in Nashville, where his skills steered an amazing 46 recordings to Grammy Award nomination, 9 of which won the award. One of these was Alison Krauss's first Grammy Award in 1990, when the title track of her album I've Got That Feeling won in the Best Bluegrass Recording category. The album was co-produced by Vorndick with dobro legend Jerry Douglas. Vorndick finally received his own Grammy Award in 2013 in the Best Bluegrass Album category for the self-titled debut album of The Earls of Leicester, a group founded by Jerry Douglas. The over 600 credits that are listed in AllMusic.com for Vorndick include internationally famous artists like Bob Dylan, Bella Fleck, Doc Watson, Dolly Parton, Joan Baez, Chet Atkins, Lucinda Williams, T-Bone Burnett, Don Henley, Amy Grant, Pat Metheny, and Jesse Winchester, as well as countless artists at the heart of Nashville's country and bluegrass music scene, including Ralph Stanley, Earl Scruggs, Rhonda Vincent, Gene Watson, Jim Lauderdale, Claire Lynch, Craig Duncan, and the Nashville Bluegrass Band. Vorndick was the go-to engineer for anyone looking for exceptional recordings of acoustic instruments, and Jerry Douglas has credited him for being responsible for the sound of bluegrass and for setting the bar for its quality.
He was like a painter. He would like paint this picture, and he did it with microphones. He didn't try to do it with outboard gear later. He would start with it. He would start painting right away.
Rhonda Vincent remarked that Vorndick had a keen ear for sound and an incredible knowledge and collection of microphones and equipment. I've witnessed Bill stand in front of an instrument and listen to the sound, and then select the perfect microphone along with the perfect chain of equipment. Bluegrass musician Craig Duncan put it like this.
He just knew how to manipulate sounds. He knew what to do to make somebody's performance the best.
In addition to helping to shape the modern sound of bluegrass and country, Vorndick also worked in genres like jazz, folk, Cajun, blues, soul, rock, and electronic music. For example, in the early 90s, he mixed the groundbreaking first two Bella Fleck and the Flecktones albums, which combined bluegrass with jazz, rock, and electronics. He also worked with the famous jazz bassist Charlie Haden and soul pop singer John Oates. Vorndick passed away in July 2022 at the age of 72. In this video, we'll be looking at his long, influential, and wide-ranging career, and examine some of the recording and production skills that made him one of the all-time greats of American music. Bill Vorndick grew up in the 50s and 60s in Northern Virginia in a musical family.
My mom was a composer, so I pretty much listened to original music, ever since I was a baby. In grade school, I wrote songs, and I guess it was 5th or 6th grade, I recorded a song on a Wallensack tape recorder, and I haven't looked back.
The young Bill was classically trained and learned to play drums, guitar, piano, and trumpet. While in high school, he played guitar in a rock and roll band, with who he attended one particularly memorable concert.
And I was in a rock and roll band in the 7th grade with a bunch of seniors, and they took me to the Beatles' first concert after the Ed Sullivan Show in DC.
Bill took the songs he recorded on the Wallensack recorder to New York, where he pitched them to record companies. Around this time, his older brother lit a passion in him for bluegrass. When he was 19, Vorndick signed as a songwriter with Cedarwood Music in Nashville, and he would regularly travel to Nashville. He also worked for a number of years at the Evening Star newspaper in Washington, D.C. Vorndick got to know the legendary Chet Atkins, and during one of Vorndick's trips to Nashville, the guitarist gave him life-changing advice.
During a visit, I had lunch with Chet Atkins, and he told me about Belmont starting a program. So I transferred my major from music and philosophy to business.
Vorndick obtained his bachelor's degree in music business from Belmont in 1979. He continued to be active as a musician and songwriter, but his engineering activities became increasingly important. A few months after graduating from Belmont, Vorndick found himself in the studio with guitarist Scotty Moore at the session at the studio of country superstar Marty Robbins.
I was doing Loretta Lynn's publishing company demos. And at that point, Scotty Moore, the guitar player for Elvis, was the engineer, but he also had a duplicating company where they made cassettes.
Right.
And he didn't want to be an engineer anymore, and Marty came by and sat over on the couch in the corner. Scared me to death.
Yeah.
And he came up in between an overdub and introduced himself, and like I didn't know who he was. And he asked if I could meet him the next day. And I went in that afternoon and met him and everything, and I thought I had done something wrong, and he asked me if I'd like to be his chief engineer.
Working as a chief recording engineer at Robbins' studio gave Vorndick the opportunity to record many of the most famous country acts of the day. After Robbins' passing in 1982, Vorndick became chief engineer at Stargem Studios in Nashville, which became Curb Studios. He also founded the Music Shop and set up Music Row Audio, which was dedicated to acoustic recording. In addition, he started Mountainside Music Productions, a production company that included 7 publishing companies, and Mountainside Audio Lab studio just outside of Nashville. Vorndick's love of acoustic instruments and live playing was at the heart of everything he did.
Nowadays, I mean, with the pop sessions and stuff, it's very hard to get a musician's concentration on the song for 3 minutes. And I grew up in the ranks in Nashville where everybody played the song down, and usually the second take, you know, the rehearsal, and then the take was it. They didn't make mistakes, you know, because there wasn't the iPhones, there wasn't the television for that generation, the A-team, when they, you know, when they grew up after the war. I mean, they played their instruments.
In the US, the 70s saw the emergence of what was called the new acoustic music genre, which blended folk, bluegrass, jazz, and world music, and which was spearheaded by Bela Fleck, Michael Hedges, Leo Kottke, John Fahey, Tony Rice, Newgrass Revival, David Grisman, and many others. Vorndick became closely associated with the genre. He had a desire to make acoustic music in general and bluegrass in particular sound as modern and impactful as the rock music of the day. As he once explained, "I wanted to see bluegrass back popular. My objective was to get younger people loving the music. I mixed the recordings I did for kids, not for old Flat and Scruggs records." Vorndick worked on several solo albums by Bela Fleck, engineering Deviation and Double Time in 1984, and engineering and mixing Inroads, Drive, Tales from the Acoustic Planet, and the Bluegrass Sessions, Takes from the Acoustic Planet Volume 2. In addition, Vorndick mixed the 2 aforementioned Bela Fleck and the Flecktones albums, which were the band's self-titled debut and Flight of the Cosmic Hippo. These 2 adventurous and Grammy-nominated albums also featured Howard Levy on harmonica, Victor Wooten on bass, and Roy Wooten on drumitar and drums. Bela Fleck remarked that when Vorndick became involved with the new acoustic music movement, his contribution was seminal. Bill showed up at the perfect time in Nashville for a bunch of us acoustic players who were trying hard to make our new bluegrass-rooted instrumental recordings sound as good as we imagined them in our dreams. He taught us and learned from us and was a great partner in a lot of wonderful music. Jerry Douglas made several similar points when he observed bluegrass recordings were inferior to other genres of music. You couldn't hear the bass. Studios just put up mics and did not EQ them. I became a producer, taking pains so the listener could hear the whole band. Bill was the engineer to make it happen. Vorndick very deliberately distanced himself from the traditional approach to recording acoustic instruments, which usually involved just a few microphones placed several feet away from the musicians. Instead, he liked to put 2 mics on each instrument, as he explained in an interview with Sound on Sound in 2002. Double miking adds a 3rd dimension to each instrument. I tried to get 1 microphone on the lower side and 1 on the higher side of each instrument. On the low side, I tend to place them where the picking arm wraps around the instrument, between the elbow and the shoulder, the other where the neck joins the body of the instrument. Vorndick went on to explain that he liked to place the pairs between 8 and 12 inches away, at a 90-degree angle, using the 3-to-1 rule. This requires 3 times as much distance between each microphone as between the microphones and the sound source. So if the 2 microphones are each 10 inches from a guitar, they should be 30 inches away from each other. According to Vorndick, the 3-to-1 rule means that the 2 microphone signals will be in phase, which prevents cancellation problems during the mix, when he will pan the 2 instruments at 9 and 3 o'clock. He added, if you pan them all the way left and right, once it gets on the radio station, you could have phase cancellation. However, if I was stacking a couple of guitars, I'd have one at 8 and 1 o'clock, and the other at 10 and 4 o'clock. That's awesome information, by the way, for all of us engineers. Vorndick has also pointed out about microphone placement in another interview. You'd be amazed if you move a microphone just a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, what a difference it will make, depending on the overtone series of the instrument and its playing in. In accordance with Rhonda Vincent's remark that Vorndick would carefully listen to an instrument before choosing the mics he would use, the engineer explained in an interview with Premier Guitar that his mic choice depends on the timbre of the instrument, and that the most important thing in any case is the performance. You could record on a Shure SM57, and if you have the performance, that's what people driving the road are going for. They are more interested in that than in what microphone did you use on that guitar. Vorndick's favorite microphones on the acoustic guitar were Neumann KM84s, as well as Mytek C5s and KM54s. On the banjo, he was most likely to reach for a Neumann U87 on the low end, and a Neumann KM84 on the high end, though if the banjo sounded a bit dull, it could have been an AKG 414, MyLab DC96B or Sony ECM 33P on the low side, and a KM84 on Mytek C5 on the high side. Vorndick recorded Bella Fleck with an AKG C24 or a C12 on the low side for a warmer sound. On mandolins, Vorndick liked to use 2 Neumann KM84 microphones, and on dobros, AKG C12s, Neumann U67s or Neumann U47s, using an XY configuration above the instrument. On violins, he tended to use just 1 microphone because the sound of the instrument is more focused, and he used mics like the AKG C12, Neumann U47, AKG C24 or Neumann 249. On upright bass, he would usually go for a Mytek C5 at the top and a Neumann U47 at the bottom, or an RCA 77DX. On Charlie Hayden, he used a Telefunken 460 on the top and a Neumann U47 on the bottom side, going through 2 Neve 1073 mic pre's. Vorndick added that his choice of microphone is especially important because he tried to avoid using EQ. Instead, he used high-pass filters and mic preamps to achieve the coloring he wanted on the sound, and therefore opted for APIs on mandolins and guitars, Neves on dobros, and Massenburgs or Sontec preamps on banjos. In the Premier Guitar article, Vorndick noted, "It would be very good for the people to know that they need to be aware of the frequency range and lowest note on the instrument that they are recording. Once you put that high-pass filter in, the instrument will feel like it's lifting itself out of the speakers." In addition to choosing the right microphone and also preamp, Vorndick also stressed the importance of finding the place in the room that works best for the overtones of an instrument, or in the case of bass, for the axial response. Despite Vorndick's obvious love of analog gear, he was one of the first to embrace digital equipment. He explains here.
And I was at the first digital mastering of a product in Nashville. It was a Masterphonics. The product was recorded on SoundStream. And the mastering engineers were Mac Evans, Glenn Meadows, and the producer was Jimmy Bowen. And I was at Marty Robbins at the time, and the mastering guys invited me over because it was the new technology. And it couldn't have been any more than maybe 8-bit if that. And it took literally a wall of equipment to play back 3 minutes of music, computer-wise and processing-wise. And that was somewhere around 1980, I guess. Pro Tools and digital workstations, I worked on the first ones, but I would never admit to it. I did a lot of editing and stuff in Pro Tools. Digital Performer came along. But before that, there were the ADAT machines, which were a pain in the butt. Because if you had 2 or more, they would just never lock up in time. Tascam had a much superior format that was a little bit more expensive. The Tascam D88s, and then the 38s, I guess it was the 78s that came later, the 24-bit. They're tape-based. I still have those machines here. They were great to lock if you got the time code card for them. You could lock up 24-track analogs, dump it to 8 tracks or 16 tracks, and go someplace and do vocal overdubs or instrument overdubs, and then lock that back to the 24-track machine and save time in the larger studios. Saved a lot of time in production. I did that a lot with Jerry Douglas on albums because it was cost effective.
Vorndick's recording approach changed over the years as he gained in experience and the equipment changed. However, he always stressed that the gear was secondary.
And just follow your dream. You spend time on your art.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The microphone doesn't make the hit record. The plug-in doesn't make the hit record. The artist and their performance makes the difference if someone's driving down the road, if they're going to listen to that song in 10 seconds or they're going to change the channel.
Right.
Yeah. And our gig as engineers is to try to help them through it.
Vorndick's exceptional ability to guide musicians through the recording process and make them sound great was particularly needed in 1998, when he recorded and produced a double album for bluegrass and banjo legend Ralph Stanley. Called Clinch Mountain Country, it features duets between Stanley and Bob Dylan, Vince Gill, Alison Krauss, Gillian Welch, Ricky Skaggs, Dwight Yoakam, Tim O'Brien, and almost 30 other artists. It became the top country album of the year, received the Record of the Year award of the International Bluegrass Association, and a Grammy nomination. The exercise was repeated in 2001 with the Clinch Mountain Sweethearts album, which features Joan Baez, Dolly Parton, Lucinda Williams, Iris DeMent, and many others, and which received the same Bluegrass Record of the Year award, and again, another Grammy nomination. During this century, Vorndick remained as active as at any other time during his career, and he was involved in the making of recordings by Rhonda Vincent, Jim Lauderdale, Janie Frick, Claire Lynch, John Oates, and the aforementioned Grammy-winning The Earls of Leicester album, and many more. He also recorded and mixed an amazing 105 albums for Craig Duncan. With painting with microphones being central to Vorndick's approach to recording, it's not surprising that he collected many microphones over the course of his career, as well as a lot of associated equipment. His enormous collection of gear has been put up for sale via Analoga, with the proceeds in support of Vorndick's family and the Nashville Engineer Relief Fund. The collection, which Vorndick painted his audio magic, includes many exceptional microphones like the RCA 44, Neumann U47 FET, U64, U67, KM54, KMI 84, Telefunken ELA M260, M262, and TK60, Schoeps CMT56N, Shure KSM 313 ribbon, 353, SM57, SM81, SM86, and KSM 32, AKG C12, 414, D112, and C4000, Mytek C7, CV3, CV4, and many more by each of these manufacturers, as well as dozens of microphones by Electro Voice, Gefell, Heil, Sony, Crowley and Tripp, Samson, Biodynamic, Sennheiser, and so on. There is also countless other gear for sale, including flight cases, pedals, amps, monitors, a Tascam DM3200 desk, a Studer B67 tape recorder, and several flight cases with outboard. The outboard includes the Sontec MEP 250C EQ, Universal Audio Uri 550 EQ, and LA3A compressor, TubeTech LCA2B compressor, Great River MP2NV mic pre, Lexicon PCM70, PCM42, and Primetime 2, DBX 263 and 376, Mytech MPA 201 mic pre, API 3124 mic pre, Drama DL251, UA-LA3A, Focusrite Red 1, and much more. More information can be found at analoga.com. Please see the link below. Vorndick was involved in countless organizations, doing his best to educate young engineers and support musicians and the studio industry in any way he could. At various points, he was chairman of AES Nashville, an adjunct professor at Belmont University, a founding member of the Nashville Engineers Relief Fund, instrumental in the creation of the Sound Health Insurance Cooperative for Musicians, and playing a role in another dozen institutions and organizations. In recognition of his achievements, AES posthumously honored him with a Lifetime Achievement Award. Vorndick was active until right before he passed away, supporting budding engineers and producers to follow their dream, so they could be, as he once expressed it, the person in the background who makes musicians realize their dreams. So this is a big deal. As you can tell, the microphones and all the equipment that's being sold here is going to amazing causes. All of the money is going to either his family or to the various charities that he supported. So if you're interested in buying any of the equipment, please hit the link down there below. This is not a hard sell. This is a way to help people who can't help themselves and to also, frankly, give something back to his family. As an engineer, you don't get points on records. So you can get paid well, and I'm sure Bill got paid admirably for his incredible work, but he wouldn't have had the residual income that the producer would have had. So this is his legacy. This collection of equipment is really his inheritance for his family and for the wonderful charities that he was involved in. So please check out the equipment. I would really, really appreciate it. And if you've learned anything from this guy was an amazing engineer with some incredible techniques. And he used some really famous mics, but he also used some really generic equipment and still affordable generic equipment and still able to probably create some of the best sounding albums of all time. And when I read about all of these incredible albums he made, it also sort of actually gets me a little perturbed that he didn't win more Grammys, because he made some of the best sounding albums of all time. Thank you, Bill, for making great records. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Please check out the equipment if there's anything there that takes your fancy. These aren't inflated prices. They're all just the usual price that this gear goes for. So this is a wonderful opportunity if any of these instruments, any of these microphones, I like calling them instruments because I feel like they are instruments. These microphones, these preamps, these compressors, whatever it is, if any of this takes your fancy, this is a wonderful opportunity to own something by one of the greatest recording engineers that ever lived. Thanks everyone for watching. If there's other engineers or producers you would like us to feature, please put them down below. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, au revoir, adios, tutsins, goodbye.